Nice to meet you. I'm at it again. And you are not gonna believe this, but I'm gonna talk about a Sony mascot platformer. At least I'm predictable. I've already made the claim in a previous video. No, you don't have to watch that one to understand this one, unless you want to. But the claim is that Sony's massively successful PlayStation 2 was carried on the backs of 3 massively fun platforming franchises. Sly Cooper is out of the way, so let's move on to everyone's favorite disappointment, Jak and Daxter. Oh, you're not disappointed? You have nothing but love and nostalgia for a great video game you wish they'd make more of? Consider this a challenge to keep that opinion until the end of this video. Jak and Daxter is chronologically the first of these trilogies to hit the scene. Time does not apply to me, but this time around we do have some veterans working their magic on the new console. Naughty Dog, creators of Crash Bandicoot and many other things that time does apply to, made their PS2 debut with this mascot platform collectathon in which you run, jump, and spin. Huh. But you can also punch, you have multiple health points by default, you can use fancy powers by collecting special colorful eco-energy, and for the first time in video game history, as long as you don't have access to the internet, a fully open world game. Off the top of my head, I can't think of another platformer that manages to do this. This entire game is one continuous world except for that one stage, no! I mean, there are some cleverly hidden load screens from time to time, but it really helps the world building to have this massively explorable area that is all very clearly connected to everything else. Speaking of which, the world building is probably the best part of this game as a whole. The strange, almost anachronistic setting is backdropped by the powerful and mysterious eco and the long-dead, technologically advanced Precursor civilization. Hey, that's in the name! Story-wise, though, the game kind of falls a bit flat. It's not a big deal, I mean platformers generally don't have a lot going on for the story, but it's worth noting that there isn't much here. Your buddy falls into some spooky goop and turns into a furry, and together you set off on a journey to hopefully undo that. Instead, you start to uncover some wild plans and some eco-terrorists, and that may be the best pun I've ever made. The jury's still out. But naturally, you're the good guy, and so you must stop the bad guy. And in order to do all that, all you have to do is some tight exploration platforming through some creatively crafted levels. Considering it's all meant to be one big world, it's impressive how much they managed to make the levels distinct. As a matter of fact, when there are breaks in the open world, it almost feels like they're only there to make the more unique biomes still make sense. It's a pretty charming package. Like with many platforming heroes, Jak doesn't speak. Luckily, or maybe unluckily, Daxter has more than enough to say for both of them, and you can't skip dialogue, so hopefully you enjoy his sense of humor. Whenever there isn't a woman in the room for him to be a misogynist about, he's usually pretty cute. He's adventurous and timid at the same time, and really only along for the ride to add as much snark as he can. But how do we even save the world? Well, mostly by collecting things. Mystical remnants of the ancient precursors known as power cells are a valuable currency in this world. Mostly because they're batteries, and every barrier in your way can be obliterated by the rampant acceleration of technology. Try not to think about it too much. As a secondary currency, precursor orbs act as essentially money in this world. Many of the citizens have quests for you, and while sometimes they're unique objectives hidden in the different levels, occasionally it's just to pay them money. Gotta love capitalism! There are vehicle and minigame segments to mix things up, but the level design is pretty good, so the core gameplay tends to be fresh throughout. And rather than mix things up entirely, different levels tend to rely on the different colors of eco you can collect and utilize the power of. Blue eco makes you faster and allows you to power precursor tech. Red eco makes you stronger and generally allows you to tackle stronger enemies in a single hit, and yellow eco shoots fireballs. Blue eco is by far the most common. Since it activates tech, they often use it to gate things off with short sprint challenges, or literally block you by making it so you can only use something if you're currently powered up with it. Jak and Daxter doesn't answer many of your questions. It creates a large, sprawling world, and its inhabitants talk as if everything is normal because it would be to them. We don't learn a lot about what eco is, or the many sages that apparently watch over the many colors, but we don't need to know that to enjoy the game. It does a great job of making the world feel lived in. Ruins of ancient civilization, small villages in each area, and a whole lot of environmental storytelling give you a platformer where there's a lot to dig into without stopping you every couple of minutes for a lore dump. The platforming can feel a bit stiff sometimes, and it's not that long of a game, but even to this day, it stands as one of my favorite platformers of all time. That's a great sign too, because there are plenty more games in this franchise to talk about. You know, don't you? You're no fool. You've heard of or played these games. They're pretty popular after all. You know what it's like to go from the amazing Jak and Daxter into the second game, which for some reason is called Jak II, even though Daxter plays the same exact role in this one. A couple months before Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy took the world by storm, another game took it by an even larger storm, which might nullify my point about Sony's golden age, but shut up. Grand Theft Auto is one of the most played franchises in video game history, at least partially because they've put out the most recent one on every platform for what feels like 20 years. And wouldn't you know it, that hype started with GTA 3 on the PS2, the same year as Jak and Daxter, 2001. This may not seem all that relevant, but if you know, you know. So 2 years later, we got our sequel, and let's just dive right in. The game picks up right where the first one left off. The 100% completion ending unlocked a fancy little machine that we never got to see, and now we see it, and we use it, and it's a time machine, I guess. Why not? We end up in what we believe is the future, but considering how many twists this franchise has, who knows if that remains to be true. I am going to spoil some pretty big twists, but to be honest, most of them you can pick up on pretty early. For example, in this one, Samos the Green Sage says, "Find yourself, Jak," and one of the first characters we meet is a young boy who looks like Jak. It isn't rocket science. The boy is Jak, in case you haven't caught on. The world building remains decently strong. There are a lot of things going on politically, and Jak has a really strong interest in it because he was tortured for 2 years by the standing dictator Baron Praxis. What were all the other characters doing for 2 years? Moving on, I guess. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We pick up after 2 years have passed, and we have the same traditional platforming we know and love, except now there's a strange emphasis on combat, and Jak has the power of Dark Eco to turn into Edgy Jak. It's cool, I guess. Right away, this game is a lot less colorful than the last one. As a whole, you could say it's darker, both in atmosphere and tone. It's like there was some other game influencing this one in some way, and I can't quite put my finger. It's GTA. Jak II's just GTA. You have a city, you drive from mission to mission, and that's why the tone is darker, and by the way, there are guns now. GTA 3 was super popular, and Jak 1 ended on a vague cliffhanger, so they had 2 years to somehow turn it into this. It's pretty disappointing at the start. I think I still enjoy the game, but the original was fantastic, with great level design and tight platforming. Those things still exist here, but they're bogged down by all the new stuff. For one thing, the gunplay is fine, but just a tiny bit unsatisfying. It feels like things should generally be taking more damage, but honestly, I still enjoy it, even if it is relatively simple. And the control for it is nice and snappy too. You have 4 guns, each mapped to a direction on the D-pad, and with different colors to keep things simple. Well, sorry, you eventually have 4. To start with, your morph gun can be a shotgun, but eventually you unlock a standard blaster, minigun, and kill things instantly mod. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the system. I think it just needed a bit of fine-tuning. For example, the shotgun at the start does the same damage as a punch or a spin move, which Jak still has in this game, by the way. And while the shotgun can hit more enemies at a time, the game also throws more at you once you have it, kinda negating the whole advantage. It's a tough game sometimes. I wouldn't say impossible for sure, but some missions can take a few tries. There are bonus missions and collectibles to unlock cheats also, but if you're just kinda meh on this game like I was, the sheer amount of them makes it seem less than thrilling to collect them all. Don't get me wrong, there's a cool sense of progression here. Unlocking new weapons is fun, some of the missions are short and satisfying, and Jak of course gets a skateboard, which is awesome. It's just that the moment-to-moment gameplay is a bit slow and hard to stick with. And of all the things that contribute to this, the most horrifying has got to be the driving. There is so much driving in this game, mostly because it works like GTA now, where you have to travel across the city to meet the contacts who give you missions. But they forgot to make the driving fun, satisfying, or even good. The city is huge, and walking around it would be nearly impossible, but the hover cars you can control aren't much faster and come with the huge drawback of having the most slippery controls possible. It's like the Coco levels from Crash 3. Remastered, which wouldn't be so bad on its own, but the city is also populated with the many people you can steal vehicles from, which makes driving through it impossible because there are so many things in your way and you can't tightly slip between them. You do have the ability to swap between a high hover and a low hover, meaning you can go under vehicles, but then you run into pedestrians and there are police down there who don't like it when you run them over. If this game were just the missions back to back, or even if the city were just smaller and more condensed, this game would honestly be fine. Most of the other parts controlled fine. It's just this driving that is unbearable. But I've been serious for far too long. Luckily, the story is here to make fun of. There are so many goofy things going on here. For one thing, Jak is dark and broody now. He's supposedly a hero, but he seems to be snarky and sarcastic to everyone now. But that's fine. It's kind of charming. I mean, he was tortured for 2 years straight and wants revenge. That's understandable. But the weirder thing is that it seems like everything is just a very thin veil to get Jak on board with this revolution thing. He hates Baron Praxis, but otherwise has no stake in this world's politics, seeing as he basically arrived and then was tortured for 2 years and knows nothing else. But most of his interactions are as if he has a pretty good understanding of everything going on. It feels like the story was written for someone who was a part of this world, and then Jak just kind of slipped into that spot instead. It's a little jarring at times, and it can be tough to root for the main characters now considering they're all kind of mean, but all in all, it's an okay game. Perhaps its biggest crime was making this the standard. Every game in the franchise, aside from the first, has this darker tone and gunplay elements. Well, there is a racing game, but if we try really hard, we can pretend it's not real. But that means that just like before with Sly Cooper, Jak 3 is going to be a continuation of all the new things they decided to do with the second game, so we can expect all of the same annoying flaws. Well, maybe. Jak III wastes absolutely no time in showing that it is a vastly improved game. Unless you count opening cutscenes as wasted time, but even then, this is interesting. Our heroes have been exiled from Haven City for a reason I still don't understand, but they are found by a mysterious society deep in the desert called the Wastelanders and immediately put to work. While eventually you get back to the city and most things return from Jak II, a good portion of the game takes place out in the desert with improvements to just about everything. Pretty quickly, you're presented with a new vehicle to get across the wild sandy dunes of the desert. The various dune buggies control better, the space is more open and easy to cruise along when necessary, and on top of that you get a variety of vehicles with different strengths and weaknesses to handle different challenges. And sometimes they shoot things. It's so much better than the zoomers, I mean the vehicle, not the generation. The level design is definitely a huge part of this, but even the slippery vehicles that can't get traction on the sand still feel better to control. And they're not even the only new vehicles to play around with. My parole officer says I need to stop considering birds as vehicles. In addition to the buggies, you also ride around the new city on these ostrich-esque birds called leapers. And with both vehicles, you get plenty of racing challenges to test your skill. I wouldn't say Jak III is an easier game, but I would say they gave the player a lot more tools and agency to make it work. Is that the same thing as being easier? Probably, but we're in my world now. The missions can still be pretty tough, but the better controls in addition to the constant upgrades this game throws at you make it much more satisfying. Dark Jak gets some new powers, there are loads of health and weapon upgrades, there's a new Light Jak with loads of powers to use, and now even the secrets menu provides some extra power. I like unlocking these secrets too. You still use the same precursor orbs as before, but now the skull gems that drop from enemies are the currency you need to access the challenges. It also feels like there are more orbs available from challenges, which makes it a lot easier to justify doing them. And if you don't want to make the game easier, there are still a bunch of goofy cheats to play around with, like Big Head mode. It just feels like a more complete experience. Everything was thought out a lot more. For example, the weapon mods. While before you had 4 mods, one for each D-pad direction, now you have 12. Each color has 3 weapons that share an ammo pool and work similarly to each other, accessed by pressing that direction up to 3 times. Because there are so many, you also get them more often, meaning there are a lot more rewards for the different missions that you end up doing. You constantly end up getting more power throughout the game, and it feels really good. Speaking of new power, the game truly feels complete the first time you unlock a Light Jak, as the first power it gives is the ability to restore HP as long as you have some light bar. Also, you can turn into Dark Jak as long as you have any Dark Jak bar, which makes it a bit easier to justify using when you do need it, and you can turn it off to save your meter. It's honestly insane to me that this game is as good as it is. I think I might like it about as much as the original, although they definitely are very different games. Sorry, I stopped being funny for a while, I just really genuinely like this game. It certainly isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. The sand vehicles can be tough to control because they're on sand. It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it stops vehicles from gaining good traction. And eventually you do end up in the original city again, which is cool in some ways, but also reintroduces some of the original problems. But it's slightly better because the new stuff, but also not really, and this game is complicated and I have mixed feelings, but I swear it's mostly good. The progression just feels better this time around, and with more weapons and ways to upgrade them, it's genuinely a fun time just doing all the things they want you to do. It's also the last time that a Jak game was on a home console, so there's that. After Naughty Dog moved on to whatever it is they do these days, Jak and Daxter were left to fend for themselves. But Sony wanted money, and so same old song and dance, someone else picked up the slack. However, this time all the duo would get are some PSP games. If you're thinking there's something else, you're probably wrong, and don't worry about it. Daxter would be the first of 2 portable games for the franchise. For some reason, all of the PSP games I played as a kid were about something being small. Like, in this case, you control Daxter, who is smaller than Jak. As much as it is a very different game, a lot of it still feels like your core Jak 2 and 3 gameplay. You play as Daxter this time around in the 2 years that Jak spent being tortured. Well, closer to the end of the 2 years, really. Daxter gets a job as a pest control tech, and so you spend the game swatting and spraying metalheads in different levels with mild platforming. It's nothing crazy, but for a PSP title with a new twist, it does a great job feeling like a game in the same franchise, right down to the vehicle and minigame segments. I'd say it isn't quite as fun from the gunplay point, as you don't end up with as many cool toys, but the platforming can be a bit more fun to make up for it. As much as I'd love to say more, the game really is just that, seriously. It doesn't get any better or worse. Not until they released another game, anyway. Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier is a game I had played the demo of as a kid, and until this day I had never touched it again. Of the 2, I was expecting this one to just be Jak and Daxter gameplay, but on the PSP. I was wrong. When a new developer tackles a game, they have 2 choices. Either only use existing parts of the game's world to tell a story like they did with Daxter, or they can do what this game does and just start throwing new stuff everywhere. Daxter has pants, which is enough to tell me that this comes after Jak 3 because everyone knows he was obsessed with pants in the first 3 games. It's a thing, don't worry about it. And I'll admit I can't even play play far enough to reach a point where they would tell me if the story gets better. The game is so simple and easy that it gets very boring very quickly. The platforming is a bit stiff and can make what feels like easy jumps a bit annoying, and the gunplay is still fairly simple, except you have less buttons on a PSP, so it's slightly less convenient. But those are all minor problems. The real issue I have comes from all the new stuff. This game is a weird amalgamation of the original trilogy in concept, with the addition of these new plane segments which don't feel right. Jak and Daxter was always this weird sci-fi fantasy with ancient tech that was commonplace. For some reason, this game has the aesthetic of World War I era dogfighting, like Porco Rosso. Add to that some weird attempts to integrate some underexplained parts of the world, and it just feels wrong. You do get to play as Dark Daxter, which is Daxter but doing the dark thing that Jak does, and as cool as 10-year-old me thought this was, it's kind of confusing and makes no sense whatsoever. Dark Eco is what made him a rat in the first place. There is a weird upgrade system too, using the different colored eco from the original game, but it feels kind of tacked on and antithetical to the gunplay that they seem to also want to include. All in all, I just didn't like the game enough to get further into it. Maybe it isn't that bad, and if you're still interested at this point, maybe check it out, but I think it'd be fine to stick with the original trilogy. These games are pretty well known and beloved, at least in my introverted experience. They're certainly not the most prolific thing I've ever interacted with, but aside from a couple of blunders here and there, it's a franchise I can wholeheartedly recommend. You know, another one that died with the PS2. But Sony's golden age owes its thanks to 3 franchises, and perhaps the most important one of all is coming next time. Better subscribe. Thanks for watching. Like the freaking video, and pretend I said something you disagree with so you can leave a comment.